Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. I'm glad that all of you could be with us today. Um, Alongside Jan from New York City.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Jan. Um, I don't know if you guys down below look at my name, you see a slight altercation to it. Everywhere with, and then Steve Young 7-4. I had a little bit of a brainstorm earlier this morning. For those of you that are familiar with Fleetwood Mac, especially their 80s material, the latter part of the 80s, they had a song called Everywhere. So that song happened to come to me, and I thought, well, wait a minute, I could use the word everywhere. So I was sitting down on my bed and I thought, everywhere with Steve Young 7-4. Because if you think about it, it does kind of work for the simple fact, topically, I am everywhere. I'm not just focusing on how much I saved at the grocery store, a quick tip on what and what not to mix, and so on and so on. I'll talk about a little bit of everything. Now, Jan, if I remember correctly, back in the earlier days of your YouTube when you first started out, you had a similar occasion occur.
Oh, yeah, if I might share. By the way, Steve, before I jump in, I really love your choice for a channel name.
Mhm.
It is so apropos for your channel because, like you said, you're not like laser focused on one specific thing. This keeps your options open. And, I just want to mention something, Stephen. Thanks for letting me mention about what happened in my situation.
Mhm.
Anyone who is a content creator, Steve, did you want to say something?
No, no, no. Continue. I was just,
Oh, okay.
yeah, just
Okay, sorry. All right. So anyone who is contemplating being a content creator, or you've been a content creator, let's say for a period of time, and maybe it looks like your view account is sluggish or your subscriber count may be sluggish, you may have the greatest video in the world. But if your channel name is not appropriate to your channel, then there's a little bit of a miscommunication and people just might overlook what could be a wonderful channel. This is my opinion. Just saying, just saying. Now, what happened to me when I opened up my channel, and it feels like the dinosaur era, but this was back in July 22nd, 2018. Steve, it's hard to believe that this July will be on for counting 5 years. I've been making daily uploads to my channel since July of 2018. That's a lot of uploads. However, I started off as a weight loss channel, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about channel name. You want to hear the best? Anybody that's listening to us today? The original name of my channel was Jan from New York City. Uh, uh, uh. Yeah. So what? What about Jan from New York City? That tells the viewer nothing. That shows the viewer nothing. Okay, so Jan, whoever that is from New York City. What? So, well, no offense, but yeah, doesn't mean anything. Then I realized when I threw away the idea of the weight loss thing because it got me too tense and didn't want to deal with it. So I wanted to share what I know. What I know about is how to manage money. That's just one of my, in my opinion, pretty good skills. Make a long story short, I said, well, stay laser focused, and the people who are interested in this kind of topic will find me. Jan from New York City, and all I did, Steve, was add two words to it: saves money.
Mhm.
Now I'm telling them what's going on. So there are people that might have a nice channel, great videos, but their channel name maybe could be a little tweaked.
yeah, yeah. I like I said, not only am I a YouTube content creator, but I'm also an onlooker, which means on days that I don't do a video and all that, maybe answering comments, I'm also a onlooker, which means I do like to go there and look up music. There's times I like to go on there and look up an interview about an actor or actress or who knows what. And oh, I know of it. I could probably tell you, I'm not going to mention names, but I could probably give about three YouTube creators that need to do something with their channel name for the simple fact that their channel name and their content don't line up.
Yeah.
And
It would be helpful, just a little tweaking.
just a little bit of tweaking, sometimes taking one word out, replace it with another one, or like you, add a couple words. Like me, I'm adding two words.
I love it. I think it's great, and it tells a story. Your channel is a random channel, and
And
you are everywhere on your topic matter. You are not laser
that's
focused on one thing.
that's it. Yes, I am Steve Young. Yes, I was born in 74. For those of you that have been with me long enough, you guys know that. Yeah, but what about Steve Young 74? Yes, that's good. But think about it, like you just said. Topically, I am everywhere. I can be everywhere. I'm not stuck in one spot spinning my wheels, which I hate because I do like variety. That's always something about me that's never going to change. I have to have that variety. I have to have a mixed bag of things. I cannot sit there and harp again and again and again and again and again and again and again
It
on
could be so boring. It could be so boring for the viewer. It could be so boring for the content creator as well.
not only that, not only for them, I get bored easy. I can get burnout pretty easy. So the thing for me to do is to switch off, go somewhere else and talk about something. I'm not saying I couldn't come back to that subject that's being exhausted, but give it a break and then
Yeah,
come back to it at a later venture. But I you know, I have been thinking about speaking about talking about music. Music, as much as I know about groceries and save money, don't buy this, don't buy that, wholesale club versus regular store. It's good to have a membership at a wholesale club if it's things that you use regularly that you know you save money, blah, blah, blah. Yes, but my top topic of all things that I could talk about is always going to be music. That's always going to be a no fail subject with me. You could I can pretty much talk about anything and everything when it comes to music. If people were to come up to me and say, "Oh, how do you feel about Cardi B or Demi Lovato or Nicki Minaj?" Yes, luckily I know who they are, but that's it. I don't listen to that type of music. Little Wayne, you would not catch me within 100 miles of listening to that. So if I wanted to listen to any type of rap or any type of hip hop, I happen to be of the decade of when I grew up when hip hop and rap was actually. I know a lot of people think rap is no good. I get that. But I also remember back when rap didn't and hip hop didn't have any profanity in it. And the music actually had a pretty good bass line and a pretty good beat to it. So, I mean, not that I'm going to get technical, but the stuff from the 80s, like the early middle 80s, was not too bad. Like Houdini, Run DMC, to name a couple.
wow, very cool.
But
You know,
I,
go ahead.
but I can talk about music pretty, pretty easily. But keep in mind, even though that is my top topic to talk about, I can exhaust that one too. That's why I try, as the name says, I want to be everywhere on things.
I love it. I really think it's apropos. Steve, you want to hear what I was doing yesterday? Because I am a member of the partner program, so I have like little rights that extra rights when you join the partner program and all that, meet the quota and all that. Now there are like songs from artists that previously a person would get a copyright strike for or whatever. There's a way that, like, for example, the content creator, if they want to go to a certain thing, and then they could find this thing, and then they could pay for a license for the music, and they could utilize it on their show, on their video, without fear of getting a copyright strike because you paid for that. I don't want to get into it for that license. So you know what I was doing yesterday? I was contemplating some songs that I would love to integrate on my show. and one of them, and I kept playing it at point 46. I think it was 46 seconds, and it was from the Kinks. Okay, it was from the Kinks, and you remember that song "Tired of Waiting for You"? So tired of waiting for you. So I think it was at point 46 seconds. If there was ever an excerpt of a song that I would love to extract 10 or 15 seconds of and use it as an intro, that would be one of them. So I was like spending like half of the evening last night listening to tracks that, I would consider, because you and I both love music. I relate to a certain decade many times. You relate to a certain decade many times. And we're multifaceted people. This is the point you're making. We don't want to remain the same. Just because, for example, let's say my show format is one way, and yes, I do believe in consistency to a degree. I also believe in changing it up a bit because the viewer might get bored, the listener, or the content creator for sure, especially when you're working with it day and night, night and day. You know what I'm trying to say? It's crazy.
Well, there's a difference musically between you and I, though. I won't focus just on one decade. In fact, I've got
I
three.
don't focus on one decade. Let's be clear
Well,
about that.
I tend to go back a lot further than you do,
Yeah.
but I have Deezer, I've got Pandora, and I've got Spotify on my phone.
Yeah.
So I happen to be listening to Woody Herman when Buddha Smiles from 1935 yesterday.
That's amazing that you do that.
Um,
Really
I was
is.
also listening to um, Rum and Coca Cola by the Andrews Sisters.
Wow.
No, I do like my 30s and 40s music as well as the 1950s on up.
Mhm.
Um, the 60s, you know, I like the 60s. I'm very partial to the early 60s more than I am
Yeah.
middle and the later. I'm not saying I don't like middle 65, 66, 67 period music. No, I do. But I tend to lean back the other way. 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, as we all know, was a lot of transition. You had the Beatles coming to America, the British music invasion. A lot
Right.
of surf music was coming into play. Well, that actually started a little bit before that, but you had, there was a lot of transition in 64. And then the latter part of the 60s, like 69, you had Creedence Clearwater Revival, where I kind of feel like they set the tone a little bit to what was to come.
Mhm.
And the 70s, which was a phenomenal decade, which I still say to this day is the decade of perfection when it comes to music, because there's actually, from what you just said, there are a few songs from the 1970s that I would like to use as an intro myself.
Yeah.
Worry about getting a copyright claim as well. Like, um, I always did like the introduction to Night Fever by the Bee Gees. Yes, I'm aware it's disco, but it's got a nice opening. December 1963 by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. That's another one that's got a good intro.
You're right about that. Because, like, if you like just extract typical intro, for anybody listening to this that does not produce a show, typical intro can run anywhere between 5 and 15 seconds
Mhm.
would be like the best to work with. Anything much longer than that, they say people don't want to hear a very long intro. So, but that point that I'm like in love with that King song, I believe is at point 46 seconds.
Mhm.
And you remember, well, you remember that song. You know the part when they go, "It's your life and you could do what you want." That point, I love that point in the song. I says that would make like the
Um,
perfect intro for my show.
are you sure you're not mixing that up with the animals?
No, it's your life and you can do what you want. That part of
Oh,
"Don't
okay.
Keep Me"
Because
right.
okay, no, you had to sing it out for me because the animals had a song called
No,
"It's
but,
Your
but
Life."
you're very correct that that would be the name of that animals tune. This one is "A Tide of Waiting," I believe is the
I know
name
the
of
one
that.
you're talking about. No,
Yes,
I know who the Kinks are
right.
because they were around not only in the '60s, but
Yes.
you had them in the '70s, you had them in the '80s, and in
They
the
kept
'80s,
going. They kept going. You're right, Steve. And the problem is they were underrated.
yeah, in the '80s, if you remember back, they had a song called "Come Dancing."
Yes. Yes. A
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
lot of people love that tune. Mhm.
right, and it was actually a little bit different for them because because there was another song or another album that they had done just prior to that. It had a song on it called Destroyer, and if you listen to the sound of the music of Destroyer, it kind of bounces back to their 60s a little bit.
Right.
If you have to hear the song in order to know what I'm talking about, and you have to be familiar with the Kinks' material in order to know what I'm talking about. But
Exactly. And you remember the song "No Time," right? "No Time Left for You."
Guess Who? Yeah.
Guess who? And I love, like, this is another possible future. I mean, I'm talking about future because I have to figure out percentages of what they take from my cut, which is already tiny. They'd be cutting even more. But like if I decide to use that as an intro, just like the first maybe 10 to 12 seconds, how it begins. It's a great intro. Like the songs you pointed out, like the Bee Gees, it's very great intro extractions.
I'll tell you another one. This is beaming over to the decade in which I grew up. In the 1980s, Robert Palmer had a song called Addicted to Love.
Yes. I remember it.
You cannot not how can you not like that boom, that
Yes.
drum?
Yes.
Of course you know that's Andy Taylor from Duran Duran, in case you're wondering.
No, I
But
didn't know that. Oh, wow, how
yes,
cool.
he's yeah, he's behind that.
Oh, wow.
I like that intro.
Yeah.
Um, Another, since you mentioned the Guess Who, I'll throw another one your way. The intro to These Eyes is pretty good.
Oh, my word. Yes, definitely.
Think about it. That
Definitely. I can
little bit.
imagine it. The opening, the fade out, coming down with that fade out. Really cool.
Um, Another one, since you're mentioning the Guess Who, American Woman's not too bad.
Oh, yeah. The only problem is it kind of like sounds like a little bit of a put down to American women, but I
No,
do like the song wise, like the musical sound.
no,
Yes.
no, 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 no. Because if you think about the way that song starts off, you have a little bit of an intro before it goes into American Woman, Stay Away from Me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But there's a little bit of a. So I mean, the opening part of that is
Their
pretty.
no, their music is phenomenal, and I agree with you that that would work great as intros. Look at the stuff that us content creators have to think about or wish to think about. We put a lot of thought into our stuff. We don't just slap it together.
No,
Yeah, it's and then we have fun doing it. We want to do it, but I have to do some research like before I would definitely like sign into it because, for example, there are like some options. I could like purchase the license for that, just for that, and it's very item specific, and they tell you what you can and cannot do, and then or I could go the way where the artist gets a cut of whatever revenue I get, which is like taking an envelope and cutting it into like thirds and then getting 1/4 snippet of the third. But then it would be shared. So it's like a lot of thinking. I don't want to plunge into it, but these
right.
are my like wishes. I've been playing around with those tracks, listening. Well, if I was to take this track or that track, these are the portions I would take. It's interesting that you like consider those items too. That I like that.
Well, there's another couple of songs from the 1980s I would use as an intro. One is Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Think about that one. And if you're familiar with Motley Crue, they had a song out called Dr. Feelgood. I've always liked that guitar intro. So,
Yes.
that, like you, I would be all over the map. I would probably use some from the 50s. I would have to, think of some of those. I would have to find. Oh, I know one from the 50s that would work. It's by a man named Ivory Joe Hunter. He did a
Hmm.
song called Since I Met You Baby.
Oh.
That would work. But you have to watch 50s music because it doesn't really have, a lot of them don't have a lot of an intro. A lot of them, 2, 3, 4 seconds, and then boom, it goes into the singing. So,
There you go.
no, if I wouldn't just be saying that if I didn't know what I was talking about. So, but usually in a 50s song, if you think about it, like Only You, da 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 da, Only You, it goes right into it.
I am beyond fascinated of the knowledge, the depth of knowledge and wide vast variety that you have with that. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, it's because, I've only because I've listened to so much music. In fact, a little bit of a side note, a movie that I decided to go ahead and watch yesterday, late afternoon, early evening, is I decided to go ahead because I've got it on my, on here on my TV. I decided to go ahead and look up the movie American Graffiti that came out in the early '70s. It had Ron Howard and Robbie
Right.
Williams in it, and that movie, even though it took place in 1962, a
Mhm.
lot of your '50s songs were in there. So, but that's always one of my favorite old movies that I do like to watch, and I hadn't seen it in a long time, so I figured I'd pull it up. So, yeah.
That's interesting, and thanks to like me rewatching that Saturday Night Fever a couple of weeks ago, I had to follow it up and watch Staying Alive because I always felt that Saturday Night Fever didn't conclude like with a really solid conclusion, in my opinion. Then you and I were just talking back and forth, and then you mentioned Staying Alive, and I said, "Wait a minute, I can get this free on this platform," and that's exactly what, as you know, factually, I watched it last Sunday. I ended up watching it 2 times. The talent displayed in that movie is
Mhm,
beyond phenomenal.
it is. Yeah, because I did the same thing not long after you mentioned Saturday Night Fever. Matter of fact, last weekend, that's what I did. I watched Saturday Night Fever and I also watched Staying Alive because I had seen Staying Alive many, many, many years ago when it originally came out. You know, somebody in my family, my other sibling, liked John Travolta at the time. And
Yeah.
then she wound up liking Tom Cruise, but that's another story. But I remember going to see Staying Alive at the theater when I was a kid. But I also saw Saturday Night Fever as a small little itty bitty child. But that's actually one soundtrack that I know like the back of my hand. Um, Saturday Night Fever, only because I've heard it so much and I played it a lot. And it's funny that you mentioned Saturday Night Fever because I just mentioned the song Night Fever not too long ago. So
Right, you did. And I was shocked to see Finola Hughes was like a key character in Staying Alive. I was like, Finola Hughes? That's the lady I used to watch on my soap opera stuff, you know?
well, you still can. She comes on at 2 p.m. on GH on General Hospital.
Amazing.
And it's still the same character that she played on All My Children. It's still
Yes,
Anna. She just
that's great.
clicked over. But and she still looks good for her early 60s. I think she's 63. She still looks as good now.
Oh my gosh, I would
Yeah.
never have known that. Never. Wow.
I always liked her accent. I always liked Finola Youth.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, anyway, bottom line, this was a fun little
It
gathering.
was.
Yeah, like I said, guys, this is what I'm highly considering changing my name to only because it does make a little bit more sense in my case. Because topically, I am everywhere. You know, yes, I am Steve Young. Yeah, I was born in '74, but that's like Jan from NYC. Okay,
Right.
she's Jan from NYC, but what does she do? You know.
Exactly. It needed further explanation for sure.
hmm So anyway, glad that you could be here today, as always, and
Thanks for having me. My
yeah,
goodness.
yeah, and thanks all of you for tuning in. So anyway, this is something for me to harp about a little bit. I haven't made any changes yet. I just made the modification here to let to bring you guys up to what could occur. All right, so
I hope you stick with it. It really works, in my opinion.
I think so too. I think so too, and it'll be good. So I hope all of you have a fantastic rest of your day, a good weekend, and we will see you back here next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.